Hi there, I'm Tori and I will take you through the practice today. So we're going to carry on with the practice of yin, and as we have done before, the yin practice is a very slow practice. It's a practice where it's all seated and we'll work for 4 to 5 minutes holding the pose. There'll be a couple of rebound poses in between the poses, but it enables us to get deeper into the body. It enables us to shut off the mind and to stop the monkey mind pondering around, running around within, and it allows us to look internally. In doing so, it allows us to create more strength, more flexibility in towards the ligaments and into the connective tissue, the fascia, and the tendons, rather than working in towards the juicy muscles that we have, that we work into within our yang practice. And our yang practice would be the vinyasas, the hatha style yogas, where we're moving around, creating cardio within the body as well as strength as well. So this is kind of working on to the inside, kind of looking in and creating more flexibility. So today we'll start by lying down onto our backs in towards our butterfly pose. So if you have a yoga bolster, or if you have a pillow from the sofa, then feel free to grab one, otherwise a block as well. Just a couple of props to give yourself a little bit more space into poses, and also it can help you kind of relax and melt in towards a pose as well. So if you have those, grab those before you start. Otherwise we'll come down to lying on our backs. So we're going to start with our banana pose. We're going to get deep in towards the sides of the body. So as we come onto our backs, we're just going to slowly just take a couple of moments just to arrive onto the mat first. So just gently coming down in towards a position where you're comfortable. Any issues into the lumbar spine, just bend the knees up towards the sky and just gently knock the knees in together. We're going to take the elbows down towards the ground and placing one hand to the heart and one hand to the belly, so we can just feel that spine just lengthen out onto the ground. And closing down the eyes. And all we're doing here is just gently arriving onto the mat and just giving ourselves a couple of moments just to really feel the space. Allow the ground come up to meet us and allow the body to just melt. We're going to come into a little bit of abdominal breathing before we start the practice. So we're going to inhale down in towards the belly, feeling the belly rise. On the exhale, we let the belly let down all the way down towards the ground. We inhale deeply in towards the belly, feeling it rise. Exhaling as we let that just gently drop down towards the ground. Inhaling deeply, feeling it rise. Exhaling it out through the nose, just letting that belly drop down towards the spine. Inhaling deeply. Exhaling deeply. So just feeling that breath move in and out of the body, feeling that tummy rise and fall, and just gently just finding that little sway point of letting that belly come up and down. We're really working in towards the diaphragm, and it just starts to deregulate the mind and just get the nervous system working at a slower rate. Few more rounds, just breathing deeply and out. One last round, inhaling into the belly, exhaling, letting it out. Perfect. So we're going to come in towards our first pose. Coming into our banana pose, we lie down on the ground, we take the hands up and over the head, and we take our left hand around our right wrist. We slowly inhale, lifting towards the top of the room. Exhaling as we pull ourselves over towards the side, so we get a lovely deep stretch through the side body. Option to stay here, or if you want to go deeper, then just gently taking your left foot out towards the side and just gently letting that right side come over, so we've got a lovely deep stretch. So with our yin practice, we work slowly and we move slowly between poses. As mentioned, we hold the pose for 3 to 4 minutes, so we really start to feel the stretch through the body, but we also find a space where the body naturally just melts in towards the pose a little bit deeper. With our yin practice, we close down the mind and we try and stop to think about, we try not to think about the day that we've had, the things that we've got to do tomorrow, the shopping list, our work list, whatever it is, and try and become more present. And to become more present, it might be a matter of just simply starting to acknowledge the body holding in stillness. Starting to focus on the areas which you feel the stretch within the body. Maybe focusing on these areas and just starting to lean in a little bit deeper. So with our yin practice, we have the ability to close down the eyes or keep the eyes soft. If we keep the eyes closed, it enables us to start to really feel where we're feeling the stretch into the body. And into our banana pose, we want to have our hips flat towards the ground and the stretch coming all the way down through the side of the body. Really deep in towards that pelvis, in towards the ribs, in towards the armpit on the right hand side. Got about 30 more seconds into the pose. So really gently feeling and leaning into that space. And then gently, we're going to move ourselves back into center. So we're going to unravel the legs first. And just gently pull ourselves back in towards our regular lying down. So releasing the hands, either dropping them over the head or just releasing them down next to you with the palms facing upwards so the shoulder blades are flat towards the ground. Any issues into the lumbar spine, then feel free to bend the legs. There's also this option throughout the pose if you need to, just keeping the legs bent up towards the sky and just using the stretch in towards the hips and in towards the torso and arms. That's totally fine. Just coming into wherever yin practice is the same as the yang practice, and we come as deep as we want to or as our body will allow for that day. So we're going to inhale the left hand up towards the sky. Exhaling, we're going to pull it over towards the right, so we get that deep stretch through the right side of the body. And again, we're going to take the legs out towards the front. Any issues, feel free to keep the legs bent, or maybe you just want to have one leg bent, that's totally fine. If you do want to go deeper, then taking that left foot over the right So we're really feeling that deep stretch through the side body, through the ribs, all the way down in towards that left foot. And again, closing down the eyes or just coming into wherever's comfortable for you. With the arms over the head, really feeling that stretch in towards the body. With the yin practice, we work into moving the body very slowly. And the reason for this is that if we are holding these poses for 3 to 4 minutes, we're actually opening in towards the joints a little bit further. Over time, we get more into our flexibility and into our stretches. We start to feel more space in towards the body. And we get to observe our mind and our being. The monkey mind, which people talk about, is the yang part of our mind, which is always wanting to achieve, always wanting to do something, seeing, being, scrolling. Whatever it is, rather than just letting your body just be and to settle and to enjoy. It's got about another minute into the pose. Just feeling that stretch through the side of the body. Using the breath to just gently release. When we're in our yin practice, we don't deep breathe heavily, we keep the breath soft. If you find that you're holding your breath for any reason, then this means we're going too hard or we're holding the pose too deeply. We need to have a sense of relax, but we also need to have a sense of activation into the pose. Perfect. We're going to slowly just release ourselves. We release the legs first. And then we just gently bring ourselves back into center, into our rebound pose, just for a couple of breaths, just to release out through the body, through the side ribs, and just noticing how we feel as we lay on the mat. Maybe we feel a little bit more open into the ribs, into the sides. Just feeling that space in towards yourself. We're going to gently make our way in towards our figure of 4. So we're getting into the hips. We're just going to bend the knees. We're going to take the left foot over the right. So we're going to open it in towards the left hip, the outside of the hip. Option to stay here if this is where you want to. If you want to go deeper, taking the hands underneath, taking a hold of that right thigh and melting the shoulders to the mat. So where we are here, we are keeping the bottom half of the body active while the top half melts down towards the ground. If you need any support underneath the top of the body, feel free to get a pillow or anything under the head. Otherwise, we're holding here for a couple of minutes, just feeling that stretch in towards the outside. So again, we're looking to find comfort into the pose. But we need to find that edge of uncomfort. If we sit in our comfort zone for our life, for our yoga practice, we find we don't actually achieve or we don't move forward. Therefore, we need to find that edge of pushing ourselves to a space where we're working, but then also keeping it soft, that we're not exerting ourselves. So finding a space where you're comfortable with the uncomfortable is always the preferred space to be. If you want to go deeper, maybe taking the hands around the shin and just gently pulling that leg in towards you a little bit further. Aiming to melt the shoulders down towards the ground and just feeling that stretch towards the outside of that left hip. So got about another minute here, just letting yourself just melt in towards the ground. Feeling that stretch in towards the body. Then gently we're just going to slowly release. So you take the hands away, releasing that right foot down towards the ground, left foot down, and just gently just knocking those knees together. So we're feeling that space. If you want to hold steady and just feel the sensations around that left hip, feel free to. If you want to take the feet wide off the mat and just gently rocking them from side to side, just feeling a release through the pelvis, then that's equally totally fine. Just allowing yourself to just release through the lower half. And we're going to gently move in towards the other side. So we're going to take the left foot to the ground, right foot over the left, and just reaching through, taking a hold of the back of the thigh as we melt ourselves down towards the ground. So our right knee's out towards the side. Again, we want to be active in towards the lower part of the body, keeping the keeping the top side relaxed. And if you want to, closing down the eyes and just starting to feel sensations in the body, it helps us become a little bit more present, helps us to settle down in towards the body. With the yin practice, we're working at finding more flexibility into the body. We're also working with meridian lines in towards the space. If you want to go deeper, taking the hands around the shin and just melting your shoulders down in towards the ground. So with traditional Chinese medicine, there's a belief of meridian lines that run through the body. And these meridian lines are energy or rivers of energy called qi. And the qi runs in and out and around the space within our body. We have 12 main meridian lines. These meridian lines are linked to internal organs such as the liver, the gallbladder, the spleen, the heart, the lungs. And they're paired together. So we have the yin and the yang. Perfect. About 30 more seconds into the pose before we release. So we're really feeling that stretch in towards the outside of the glute on the right hand side. And why the belief of working with these meridian lines is that we just releasing the hands and releasing the legs down towards the ground, coming into that rebound pose. So whether that is the feet wide of the mat, the knees knocking into each other, or whether we're just slowly moving from side to side, we want to work very slowly after working deep in towards the hips, in towards the hip joints. And then slowly pushing down through the elbows into the hands as we bring ourselves in towards a comfortable seated position. So we're going to come in towards our half butterfly. So we're going to take one leg out towards the side and the other leg in towards the inner thigh. We have options. So if you have a bolster or you have a blanket, a rolled up blanket or pillow from your sofa, feel free to place it in front of you. Otherwise, if you want to, grabbing your block and using it as a support in towards the neck if it gets too much. We want to find a relax into the body. So maybe just giving ourselves just a little bit of a shake to release so we lose the tension. Taking a lovely big inhale to fill the body with breath so we get that length in the spine. And then exhale, we fold forward. So I like to just gently melt the chin in towards my chest. So I'm melting from the top of the body as I come down in towards the bolster. And then I gently release the forehead down in towards the bolster into my space. It's nice to have the bolster because it supports in towards the body, but equally, if you don't have a bolster, it's totally fine to use a block, or maybe you want 2 blocks. Or maybe you use your hands just to gently give yourself support in towards your forward fold. We're looking for a stretch towards the inside of the hamstring on the right hand side. And a gentle release in towards the lumbar spine at the back of the body. So we're coming to wherever's comfortable for you. If it's comfortable taking the arms down towards the ground, maybe taking the palms up towards the sky. And just gently finding a release in towards your forward fold. Now the meridian lines are a combination of the yin and the yang. So the yin meridian lines start down at the lower part of the body, such as the feet. And they work themselves up through the legs, whether that's inside or outside, into the groin, into the hips. They work in through the torso, and again, whether that's through the middle, through the outsides, or the front and back. And they will work all the way up in towards the head. So the yin meridian lines act on energy moving upwards, and the yang lines work on pulling the energy down towards the ground. And the reason why I talk through this is because it's very important in towards our yin practice. There's a belief that if we have energy that's stagnant in the body, it can create illness or it can create upset. Therefore, if we make sure that the meridian lines are flowing to their full potential, and we can work and look into this via acupuncture or through yin yoga. And we can feel whether the energy flows correctly or whether it's running slowly. Either way, we don't judge it at all, we just notice it and we observe. By coming back to our yoga practice daily or weekly, we are able to observe ourselves and our monkey mind. where in places you may not feel that you're getting more stretch or getting more flexible over time. And by coming back to our practice, we're able to see the difference from one side to the other, but also in towards our ability to settle onto the mat. So gently we're just going to push ourselves up away from the ground and just walk the hands gently back in towards us. So as we come back up into seated, we bring the head up as last and we get ready to move in towards the other side. So coming straight in towards the other side, again, whether you want to using your bolster, a pillow or into a brick, either's totally fine. We pull that lengthened leg up in towards us and we gently release the left leg out towards the side. Any issues with lengthening the leg out towards the front, maybe just taking a rolled up blanket or a towel and just placing it underneath just to give it a little bit of a bend in towards that leg. So whatever's comfortable for you, just finding that space. So again, just giving ourselves just a little bit of a shape just to release out through that leg. Giving a bit of space in towards the body, and then gently we're just going to melt ourselves back down in towards that forward fold. So just walking the hands back into wherever's comfortable for you. Again, maybe we're staying here to begin with the arms long. And then slowly, as you start to feel yourself give into the pose and start to feel space, just gently melting ourselves just a little bit further in towards the pose. Wherever you are, just making sure the sitting bones are equally seated towards the ground. As mentioned before, we want to come in towards the practice with a space of understanding the analogy of finding our edge. So we might come into the forward fold feeling it too deeply, so we need to pull ourselves out of the pose. And that's totally fine. There's no right or wrong in towards our yoga practice. It's a matter of feeling the sensations and observing them for us and our best potential. Coming into about halfway, so if you want to release yourself further, feel free to, but coming to wherever's comfortable within your body for the practice. So whether that's taking your leg a little bit further out to the side, whether it's melting yourself down onto your hard back book or onto your elbows, and just find that release into the body. Sometimes it's nice to just let the head hang, and then we're able to feel that stretch in towards the back of the neck. As gravity works as magic, feeling that stretch through the back of the body. Got about 30 seconds left into this pose, so just really observing the stretch that you're feeling, noticing the monkey mind and if it's wandering to a space that's not here. And just telling yourself, telling your body that it's okay to relax into your pose. Slowly we're going to bring ourselves out, so we put the weight in towards our hands. And just gently walk ourselves back in towards our seated position. So just really opening up the self, letting the head just melt back in towards space, sitting on top of the spine. And then releasing the leg out towards the side. So we're going to come into a wide leg forward fold. Again, we've got options if you want to use your bolster or your pillow from the sofa, feel free to. And all we're doing is taking the legs out wide, giving them a little bit of a shake. And we're just going to come deeper in towards that forward fold that we've come into with the legs bent on each side. So if you want to, we would like to be feeling the stretch on the inside of the thighs. Taking the bolster if you have one. Otherwise, just using a block or something that gives your support in towards the head. Otherwise, just using your arms as that support. We're looking for that stretch. Any issues in towards the knees, and feel free to just bend them slightly, placing a bolster or rolled up blanket or rolled up towel underneath just gives you a little bit more space. And sometimes it's just nice to play with these extra spaces through our practice. So whereas today you might not feel like doing it, maybe next time it feels a little bit different coming into it. So we're going to take a big inhale, just filling the body with air. And exhaling, we're just going to melt forward. So again, just tucking that chin in and letting ourselves forward fold. And then gently, if you want to, if you've got the bolster in front, just releasing your head over to one side. And really feeling that stretch towards the inside of the thighs as we hold here for 3 to 4 minutes. So the monkey mind that I talk about, that we're looking to train and find less resistance with, is the mind that makes us move or makes us itch. It's the part of the mind that is reacting to space. It's where we feel that hair just itching onto the nose, or the itch towards the back of the head, the need to move the toes, and it's leaning in to not give in. So we want to acknowledge, understand what that feeling or that sensation is, and then having the ability to ignore and to just sit and to release. So about 30 seconds left into this pose. So if you want to go deeper, maybe taking the bolster away from you. Again, if you've got the legs on a rolled up blanket, to give yourself a little bit more space, maybe just removing those towels and just finding a little bit more in towards the back of the spine and in towards the front of the hips. Using that breath though to gently release yourself from the pose. using it to observe the body. If we're holding it, we're going too deep. Again, if we're breathing deeply, we're pulling in towards the yang practice rather than in towards our yin. Slowly we're going to start to walk the hands back in towards us, so just releasing the head. And just walking ourselves all the way back up into seated. Feeling that stretch in towards the inside of the legs. We're just going to release out through the legs. We're going to just place our weight in towards the hands behind us. We're going to bend into the legs. We're just going to gently windscreen wipe the legs from side to side. So just moving from one side to the next and just opening in towards those hips. Gently swaying ourselves from side to side. Just really feeling that relationship between the muscles, the bones, the ligaments, the stretch. Perfect. We're going to slowly make our way down into our backs. We're going to gently just come in towards some spinal spaces. So we're going to come in towards our Sphinx pose. We're going to gently come down towards the mat. And we're going to remove the block away from us. Hands come down. So remembering to move very slowly throughout the practice as we're working deep in towards the joints. We want to have the palms underneath us. Hands, palms down towards the ground, elbows down, and we want to find a release in towards the hips. Any issues into the lumbar spine within this pose, just placing a folded up blanket just underneath the belly, and it can give us a little bit more lift in towards the pose. So although we get the arch into the back, it gives us some support. Otherwise, palms come down towards the ground. We want to pull the shoulder blades behind us, squeeze them in, and we just gently gaze towards the ground in front of us. So if you want to, again, just keeping the eyes closed. If it's too much, maybe placing your block or your hardback book and just gently releasing that head down towards the block, just to give yourself a bit of support. So we're holding here for 3 minutes and just letting gravity work its magic in towards that spine. We're learning to sit with the uncomfortable. We're learning to understand what is uncomfortable and where the line of it's so uncomfortable we have to move to change, or whether it's just uncomfortable and we need to just find a little bit more comfort into the pose. So wherever's comfortable for you, keeping a hold of that monkey mind and just releasing, feeling that space. So we've got 1 more minute in towards this pose. If you want to go deeper, feel free to taking your hands out towards the side and just lengthening in towards the arms. So we're coming in towards our seal pose. It gets deeper in towards the arch at the back of the body. So just knowing you're only coming to wherever's comfortable for you in your practice. Keeping that space. Again, we've got the option to either have the gaze down towards the ground, feeling that openness into the back of the neck, or if you want to, keeping the gaze out towards the front and just gently closing down the eyes. We feel a lovely deep stretch through the abdominals, through the front of the body. If we can, we release in towards the glutes. So gently, we're just going to release ourselves down, back onto our elbows if we move deeper. And slowly just taking the block out towards the front. We're going to take both palms on top of each other and just gently sway out the hips. So we sway out through the spine and the back of the body. Just finding a release. And if you want to, taking a lovely deep inhale. Exhaling, just letting it out and just releasing the body down towards the ground. Just letting it melt in towards the surface of the mat. So we're going to come in towards our half frog pose. So we're going to open in towards the hips just a little bit more. So we're going to bring our left leg in towards us. We're just going to take the knee so it's parallel towards the hip. And just come into wherever's comfortable for you. So the deeper you go, the further the leg comes out towards the side. We want to square the shoulders back down towards the ground if we can. And hands come over each other at the front of the mat. So you have two options here. You have the option to come into both half frog and holding for 3 minutes on each side, or if you want to come into a full frog, then we come in towards taking both knees out wide and coming down on towards the chest. So option if you want to, I will give a cue to move in towards the second half of the pose. Otherwise, if you want to come in towards your full frog, we take the legs out as if we're going in towards a wide leg child's. But instead of having the toes pointed, we have the feet out towards the side, and we just slowly take the feet so the feet are parallel towards the knees. We take the bolster out towards the front, and we just gently melt ourselves down onto that bolster, and we take the forehead or the cheek down towards the mat, and we open deep in towards those hip joints. Otherwise, you've got 1 more minute in towards your left side, and I'll cue when you're ready to move in towards your right. So as I've mentioned before, when you're working in towards your hips, especially in the body, we can be pulling up different sensations and different feelings within the body. And it's interesting when we start to deepen our yoga practice, we start to have the ability to observe where these feelings come from. So we might just feel agitated or irritated, angry when we're doing deep hip openers. And maybe we need to release these feelings. So if you're in your left hand side, just gently taking that left foot towards the back of the mat, keeping both hands on top of each other, and just swaying out the hips, feeling that openness in towards the hips and the spine. Just holding here for a couple of moments, just really letting that release. And if you want to, slowly working towards the right side, so making sure that the right knee is parallel towards the right hip. Taking the leg out to wherever's comfortable for you. So the easier the pose, we have the foot in towards the bottom, and further away we take it towards the outside, so we're opening in towards the hip. Otherwise, if you're here in towards this deep hip opener in our full frog, which is where I am, and if you followed me in towards this, we're holding here for 2 more minutes. Really notice if you are starting to clench in towards the jaw. And if you are just finding a little release in towards that space, just giving your jaw a little bit of a wiggle from side to side. And as you do so, noticing if there's any release in towards the hips, whether you have an ability to go any deeper. Perfect. We've got 30 more seconds into this pose. So if you're in your full frog, gently coming out of it, taking the toes together towards the back of the mat. If you're in your half frog, gently taking the feet towards the back so they meet. And releasing in towards that forward fold, that forward hand underneath the forehead. So if you're in your full frog, take the toes together. Walk the hands gently in towards you and just slowly, one by one, bring the knees back in. If you want to, coming into a gentle child's pose, forehead down towards the mat or towards the bolster, and just gently just letting that release in towards those hips. Wherever you are, we're taking a couple of deep inhales just to find that release in towards the body. Lovely deep exhale. One last lovely big inhale. And exhale. Slowly, wherever you are, just walking your hands back in towards you, whether you're lay down or whether you're in your child's pose, bring yourself all the way back up. We're going to come in towards our back bend, and again opening up the knees once more. So coming into one final pose before we finish. And we've got the options. We can either take the bolster or our pillow or a rolled up blanket, just placing it between the shoulder blades, or we can use our bolster. If we use the bolster, we pull the bolster into about halfway. If it's a full bolster like mine, so we don't have too much issues in towards the back. We take the toes together, so we're really opening in towards the hips today. If you have any issues with opening the hips any further, placing a folded up blanket or something underneath either side to give ourselves a bit of support. When we support ourselves in towards our hip openers like this, what we find is the support talks to our nervous system and allows it to release a little bit deeper. When we're holding in space, sometimes there's lack of wanting to release, because if we release, we're fearful of the hurt within the body. Again, if you only have a yoga block or a kind of a box or something, maybe it's placing that between the shoulder blades just to open up the body, and using the pillow underneath the head as support. What we're looking in this pose is to open up the shoulder blades as well as the hips. So it can be quite a vulnerable pose, but it's a really nice space to just open up in towards the body. Especially if the head's supported and we don't have the head falling back. Palms come out towards the sides with the palms facing upwards. And just taking time to breathe in towards the front of the heart. So coming to wherever's comfortable for you. It's a lovely pose to work into if we are at our desks all day, typing, folding forward. Any issues in towards the legs, then just lift the legs and take the legs towards the front and just gently let the feet roll out towards the side. So we're still opening in towards the chest and opening into the heart. Maybe closing down the eyes and just really enjoying that openness that starts to happen in towards the chest. Really surrendering deeper in towards your practice. So if the legs are out wide, just taking the hands towards the outside of the knees, lifting them inwards. If the legs are out towards the front, just bending into the legs. Then we're just going to roll ourselves towards the left or the right hand side, whichever's available to you, and just removing the props from underneath us. So just gently coming in towards the side, so we just release ourselves gently. Feeling that release through the spine, through the shoulders, through the hips. And then slowly we're just going to release ourselves in towards our Savasana, our final resting pose. So we're going to lengthen ourselves out along the mat, taking the legs wide, palms face upwards, and we're melting down into the ground. Closing down the eyes and just really starting to feel that body release. Using the breath. Lovely deep inhale. On the exhale, just part your lips and just let it out. So we're just going to gently putting ourselves out of our Savasana if you want to. As you're practicing at home, maybe you want to just stay in towards your Savasana for a little bit longer. Otherwise, we're going to start to just wiggle the fingers and the toes. And just gently bring the knees in towards the body, into the chest. And just giving ourselves a little bit of a sway from side to side to release in towards those hips. And then slowly we're just going to bring ourselves in towards a comfortable seated position at the top of the mat, so just facing forward, keeping the eyes closed. Hands towards the knees or the thighs. And just taking a moment to notice how the body feels. How the breath feels. And how the mind feels. Bring the hands into prayer in front of the heart. May the light in me honour the light in you. Namaste. I hope you enjoyed that slightly slower practice today. Getting deep in towards the joints, into the hips, and really just opening up into the heart as well. So any issues, any questions you have about any poses, then feel free just to drop the details or questions in towards the comment box below. But otherwise, I hope you have a fabulous day. Thank you.